Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. You can see here that I am not in a hotel room this week. The audio should be actually pretty presentable. Things look much better this week. I'm dramatic or not. It was terrible recording in a hotel room, but
it done.
Had to get it done, and we've got a pretty exciting slate for our teams at the moment. I know it's very weird. We kind of want more opportunities, I feel like, to be in the field right now, but there's only 2 teams playing at the moment.
I know.
Which sucks, to an extent. But they're both on 4-game win streaks. They both have things don't necessarily look to be slowing down for either team, and it feels like, to an extent, at least for the Seahawks in their remaining schedule, that they can continue this. The Kraken, there are things that they can fix and get better. So, all in all, these look like positives to an extent. So, with all of that and my general excitement, and we have Bel back. So Bel is back here. You're not on the screen.
Whoa.
So no, you're actually here. So we'll get into our Seahawks related things. I mean, it's been a really. I texted Bel this the other day. I just said, after we got some of the news that we'll look at in the team news section, I just said these Seahawks.
Yeah, literally.
And admittedly, I was wrong about the Seahawks. I said it several times now. I don't need to keep apologizing, but I feel like, to Geno at least, it's been pretty incredible to see this run. But, at the end of the day, too, it's just, we're going to be wrong in this industry. And I'm glad that I'm wrong about these guys doing poorly and that they're doing well. 4-game win streak, top of the division. Yeah, pretty dang solid. So, Bel, why don't we head over to our Seahawks segment and look at that win over Arizona down in the desert?
Yeah, as you mentioned, 4-game win streak. They've won their last 4 in double digits. And yeah, this last week, they beat the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, 31-21. Our offensive players of the game, I went with Noah Fant, who I feel like is being utilized in a good manner, as well as all of our tight ends. Noah Fant had 5 catches. He was targeted 6 times and had 96 yards and a 9.2 average. So,
yeah, I mean, that's a solid selection. To go to the tight end thing, we've said it before we started recording here, and even I think we said it during the show as well, but the tight end usage this year is much higher than it has been. And this is no shade on the guy that wears number 3 for Denver right now, but it feels like the tight end usage is something it's much higher than it has been in previous years. And Russell wasn't a guy that necessarily liked to throw over the middle anyway. Disregard Super Bowl 49 reference here. But just seeing the guys, as you mentioned, Fant's getting used. He's a guy that's young and athletic, got him in that trade with Denver. Will Dissly, before he had the patella tendon injury, was really, if you look at his first few games as a Seahawk, really funny enough, one of the games was against Denver. He had like a 69-yard catch and run, really showed some great athleticism, and he's a Husky, so I'm biased. Kobe Parkinson's got the size, and he's made some plays as well. The only caveat to the tight end usage, I would say, I don't know if you saw it, it was like a 4th and 2, and Seattle did. The Chiefs kind of started it. I feel like that they did it was like a pitch option where the tight end comes right behind the offensive line and they toss it to him. That got blown up really quickly. That's my only caveat. But outside of that, the tight ends have been doing their job. So I'm really happy with that because you've got playmakers there. It's not just DK and Tyler Lockett, and then you look at the backfield. Your tight ends, I've got to show appreciation to the tight ends.
Easily it could have gone with either one of those guys too, because they each had a touchdown as well, Lockett and Metcalf.
Yep.
But I mean, yours is a pretty consistent player.
This guy, again, with the apologies, I was upset with the pick in this position. I'm like, hey, this guy won, I believe, the Doak Walker Award for best running back in college at Michigan State, had an absolutely explosive year. But it's, I guess I have trust issues when it comes to the running backs. With Kenneth Walker, with our history since Marshawn Lynch, we look at Thomas Rawls, CJ Procise, Chris Carson's retired now. even our guy Rashad Penny being shelved, unfortunately. But with Walker here, you look at this: 26 carries, 109 rushing yards, 2 rushing TDs, 20 receiving yards. The term that I saw was closer, because he comes in the fourth quarter and kind of ends the game. Has the most rushing touchdowns in the fourth quarter in the league at 6, and ranks second in franchise history for the most rushing touchdowns by a rookie with 7, third in franchise history for the most rushing yards by a rookie with 570. And I feel like whatever other records stand in his way for a rookie running back, he'll probably smash those. I don't know. It's just pretty incredible to see. He's a hard runner. He's got that burst when he's able to get to the second level. He's what you need at a running back spot. And, from the running back spot, you did get Travis Homer back. I believe it was last week. Travis, I mean, he's all right. And mixed feelings about Travis Homer. He's a good pass blocking back, but I mean, Kenneth Walker kind of has, to an extent, has shown he can be a 3-down guy. I know he's only the 20 receiving yards, but he's been doing the job that you need him to do. And, ideally, there have been comments I saw on social media with Rashad Penny that, maybe he gets let go because of Ken Walker. Why would you not? With how banged up he's been, I'm sure in terms of free agency, that might hinder his cost, right? If Rashad were to hit free agency, but why would you not want to have that 1-2 punch? Right?
So you think he moves back into that backup role?
I mean, with the way that Ken Walker's been playing,
why wouldn't
I think it's hard to not have him be that. But regardless, to look at Ken, it's just been incredible. There was the great photo of the lady flipping him off in LA.
Yes.
Well, they scored that touchdown. The guy continues to just run the ball really damn well and do what you need him to do. So I feel like he was kind of the guy here. You could have gone with a few guys, like you mentioned with DK and Tyler with their offensive inputs, but Ken continues to shine. And, we'll get to some more news regarding him, but let's look at the defensive side of the ball here. We both went with linebackers. 2 guys that are, Jenna's not super young, but Bruce coming off of being on the couch, at 35 years old and getting someone said the Bruce signal instead of the bat signal. They put up the Bruce signal. He came back. We'll start with that since we're talking about Bruce. You went with Bruce Irvin. Hard to not. I mean, there was that big play last week where Daniel Jones handed the ball off to Saquon Barkley and he pounded Daniel Jones back into Saquon Barkley. I hadn't seen something like that before.
Yeah.
So this week, though, why did you go with Bruce?
It's his first sack back in the blue and green. So he's back as a Seahawk. It was his first sack of the season, and I'm looking forward to more. And it was just, I like going with those choices that kind of pull on the heartstrings. So it's good to have him back.
That's fair. And, with Bruce, at least, with him being the pass rusher they've just been, I remember, again, we're going to age people. I was in middle school at a little league game during the draft that he got selected. And the talk that my little brain could comprehend was that, there's some red flags with this guy. Why is Seattle taking him so high? And he was able to contribute. I remember, not to go against the Packers fan, but in that Monday night game with the fail Mary, he had 4 sacks. He helped contribute in that game because we had a ton of sacks at Rodgers in that game. And I was like, this guy is pretty good.
He's the real deal.
And so, with the sort of younger pass rushers, you've got hoping to get Darrell Taylor back this week with Boye Mafe. And the other linebacker, this is a relatively younger defense. You can provide that in a leadership role. And another comment was made to me during the game last week. Guys like Bruce Irvin, Richard Sherman came back. Marshawn's hanging around the team now. Yeah. You see that with Pete Carroll, as much as he might have been doubted in the offseason, some still might doubt him. The culture thing is a big deal.
I don't know how you could doubt them, especially with the culture thing. That has to play a part in how well they're doing.
That was something I think that in the offseason I really was like, he creates a great culture. And this is just, as you can see with guys coming back, this just proves that. Guys want to play for this guy. You can be as great as you are, have the schemes, but a lot of the times the culture thing is a big deal to me. I'm like, okay, does this guy want to be here? With the Mariners, right? They talked about, Service talked about the culture. Geno's a big culture guy, right? Julio, I don't even have to say that anymore. You know what I mean? So you want to see these things from our teams at least, because it shows people like being here. And, like a guy like Luis Castillo, you look at any of the games that he's got this, usually when he wasn't starting, he had this big smile on his face. after like the walk-off against Atlanta, huge smile. Guys, you want guys to be here because then when free agency time comes and you want to get a big guy here, maybe they look at that. They say, hey, guys want to be here. These guys want to win. And then to bring Aaron Judge here, give him some money too. But so it's interesting with Bruce, a guy like him who's been on with the organization before, seeing him come back. I just wanted to touch on that. In the heart strength, it makes sense. I went with Uchenna Nwosu. Uchenna's a guy that I've liked the signing since free agency, and the guy continues to contribute. He had a monster game, 4 tackles, 3 solo, 2 sacks. He only had 7, I believe, in 9 games last year, so he's kind of racking it up. 2 tackles for loss and 3 quarterback hits. The guy has been able to bring pressure up the edge. He's not like a young guy necessarily. He's not old either. He's been a valuable addition. If we could look at his total stats, I know last week too, he was my defensive player of the week last week. So he just continues to be disruptive. And the last few years for the Seahawks, I know that pass rush has been a big deal, right? Jamal Adams had those sacks that he did, most sacks by a defensive back in a season, and still pass rush was an issue. I think even a few years Dwight Freeney was here for a few games, legendary Dwight Freeney, but I don't hear that as much right now. So you've got guys like Uchenna contributing, Bruce is contributing. Getting to the quarterback's a big deal because then it takes pressure, as you know, off of your secondary. Guys like Tariq Woolen. I was going to make this post earlier. Charles Woodson, who Charles Woodson is, said, I'll get the exact quote. It was like, this Tariq Woolen is that deal.
Yeah.
Hey, if a guy like Charles Woodson is giving you that sort of recognition, that's pretty damn good. But, so on the defensive side of the ball, I'm happy with what's going on. And this is incredible because the first, 5 or so weeks, we were like, man, these guys are terrible on the defensive side of the ball. What's going on? True. And there was a quote from one of the linebackers, it might have been Quandre actually, who said, just kind of let these guys, let us figure this defense out. Got a new defensive coordinator. Let us figure this defense out. And I was like, man, it's been 5 weeks. What's going on? I got a little impatient. They're figuring things out. You play the Giants, who have a pretty dang solid offense. Saquon Barkley, I love Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones, to his credit, has been playing well.
He has.
Arizona's got some big weapons. This was something you talked about in the offseason when we saw the suspension for DeAndre Hopkins. You said, okay, but he'll be back for that second game. And the first drive, I think he had most of his offensive input on that first drive they had. And then they were able to kind of mitigate that. So, guys that you're usually worried about, they've been able to kind of handle a little bit. Got a solid test next week in Munich against a certain guy that we thought was going to retire this year.
That's an early game.
I'm going to ruin my sleep schedule. But I know that Tampa Bay's had a tough year, but I'm not going to doubt them.
Tom Brady did Tom Brady things yesterday.
Oh, yeah. So. That last drive was incredible. Tom Brady, Mike Evans, I almost said Chris Evans, not the Captain America. No. Chris Godwin.
Yes.
There we go. Kate Otten, former Husky. So they've got weapons on that side. I'm not going to put them off in the slightest. Seattle's actually early underdogs for that game as well. So, we'll wrap it up. The defense, happy with the defense, what they're doing right now. And Trey Brown, that rookie corner from last year, I believe is still working his way to get back to being physically able to perform. But it's interesting. I know I said I was going to wrap up with the defense, but I want to look at the corners. You've got Tariq Woolen, who's doing Tariq Woolen things.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant almost had his 5th forced fumble.
Almost.
But I'm confused on that rule a little bit. It looks like he had both feet, and then he started to turn which is a football play. Which I thought was a football move. I'm not the rules expert. My buddy Nick is, and he was saying wasn't too sure. So I digress. But Bryant's been working his way up. Then you look at some of the other guys, like Sidney Jones got released at the deadline, which he's a Husky too, and I would have liked to see him stay, but there just wasn't the room, and the cornerback room's getting younger. Artie Burns has been around. He's been a healthy scratch here for a few times. So it's interesting that, you brought in some guys like Burns, like you brought Jones back. There's another Justin Coleman brought these veteran guys back, and I thought they were going to be leading your group, but it's Woolen and Bryant who are starting for you. And I think when Trey Brown gets back, he'll probably push one of the other veteran guys out. mean, it's a good problem to have, but it's just interesting to see how that cornerback room has evolved as we've gone on. So I'll be quiet. We've got injury news to look at from this past week.
Yes. So injuries regarding the Arizona Cardinals game. Marquise Goodwin and Darrell Taylor were announced as out against Arizona. Inactives against the Cardinals were Jake Curran, Tony Jones Jr., Marquise Goodwin, Miles Adams, Darrell Taylor, and Joey Blount. Injuries against the Cardinals. Colin Gaspia was doubtful with a knee injury during the first half. So nothing too concerning there.
No, I hope to see Taylor and Goodwin back, because Goodwin, against I think both games this past few weeks, the Chargers and the Giants game, was able to contribute pretty well as the third guy. I really want to see D. Eskridge contribute more. Guy that second round, not first round, I believe, a few years ago, and just has not been able to contribute really. We looked at it. No, I think he had a few targets, no receiving yards, no catches. He's got a lot of speed, but just hasn't been able to fight his way. Goodwin came in and did well in training camp, and he's now kind of being the third receiver. I'd like to see more out of him. But no, yeah, I'd like to see those guys back. Another guy on the inactives list that we'll look at here, I'd like to see Miles Adams get more play.
Yeah.
I know that he was a guy I think I actually picked during the preseason as one of my players of the week. And, LJ Collier's been getting the starts over him, and I don't know. I'd like to see Adams get some more run, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. So luckily there were no major injuries during the game. Let's hope that continues. We'll move on to some team notes here. On the first, the team signed wide receiver Laquan Treadwell to the practice squad. As a corresponding move, wide receiver tight end JJ Arcega-Whiteside was released. And as you mentioned, the team released corner Sidney Jones after failing to trade him. Further thoughts on that? I know.
Yeah. I mean, again, it just goes back to the cornerback. But with the cornerback room being as young and good as it is,
it's kind of hard. Yeah.
Kind of hard. The Treadwell thing is interesting. I was interested to see if Arcega-Whiteside did anything, but apparently not, but interesting to see. Treadwell's been around the league. I think he got drafted high by Minnesota, I want to say.
Okay.
And it's just, I could be wrong about that, but he just never really worked out. Was highly regarded coming out of college, never really able to put it together. So yeah, that's it on anything. On my thoughts on the roster moves, but the next news is pretty cool.
Yeah, tight end Will Dissly was named the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He recorded a forced fumble recovery, in addition to his offensive input. So again, we mentioned the tight ends and how well they could do if they're used, and that's proven here.
That game against the Giants, seeing him, it wasn't even like he was trying to tackle the returner for the Giants. He just kind of threw his body at him, and the ball popped out, and that was a big deal because we get the ball back. But I think it was interesting to note that against I think it might have been Pete said that, with the guys like Dissly that start, but they're also contributing on special teams. It's a big deal to see too. Good to see. That was something I was worried about after that big injury he had a few years ago in his rookie year, and even I think the year after. It was like he might be on the way out, but he's still contributing to this team. So I like to see that.
We also had some rookies of the month. And yes, that's plural. Rookies.
Yeah.
Ken Walker was named the NFC Offensive Rookie of the Month, and Tariq Woolen was named the NFC Defensive Rookie of the Month. Walker 3 has tallied 432 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground, including runs of 69 and 74 yards. His 5 runs of 20 or more yards are tied for 4th most in the NFL. Woolen has an NFL leading 4 interceptions in addition to 2 fumble recoveries. 3 of those interceptions and 1 of those fumble recoveries came in October. So big congrats to those. And of course to Geno Smith, who was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Month. Over 5 games in October, Smith had a 69.4 completion percentage with 1,207 yards, 9 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and a passer rating of 111.7 through the air. Geno also has 143 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So again, impressive. I mean, the team all around is doing so well, and I know I've mentioned this before, but we said we wondered if Pete Carroll was accurate in saying that they could win 10 games this season, and they are 6 of those 10 through. So it's looking good.
Yeah, and I mean, so to go back to it, I think this is the first time that teammates have won the offensive and defensive rookies of the month, and both of these guys are well deserving. And this is, I'm hoping to have a graphic done of it soon. But you look at the youth around our teams in this city. Obviously there's we start with the Seahawks. You got Woolen, and just never mind those two. The entire rookie class.
Yeah.
Right. Then on the Mariners, just start with Julio, George Kirby. Right. We could go further into that. We look at the Storm, and Ezim Hegbagor still really, really young. It's not like Jewel Lloyd or Brianna Stewart are old.
No,
but they're with the guys
they're
we're talking
seasoned.
about. We look at the Kraken. Matty Beniers is probably going to win Rookie of the Year. The Sounders have some solid. Obed Vargas was a solid contributor before his injury. The Rain Jordan Heidema is 21, and they went Instagram official.
They
went Instagram official. I had known about this for months, thanks to a buddy. Thank you, Mike. But it was funny. Lookout Landing. Buddies at the Lookout Landing was like, all the normies know now. I'm like, some of us have known. I saw her at the game the Mariners clinch. I was like, wait a minute.
I saw the back of her head in a Julio jersey.
Yeah,
and
I remember seeing that too. It was like, you do the wait a minute.
Yeah,
you look at the Instagram, you say, yeah. So, good for that. But in the Seawolves, the signing, the 21-year-old they just signed that we'll get to in the Seawolves segment. But there's young talent. Oh, we have a Rookie of the Year too for the Seawolves. So there's young talent all across the board here.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. But with that, and then with Geno, I am sorry for doubting you. I know I said that Drew Lock would be in at some point. When we blow someone out, Drew Lock can come in and play. I was wrong. Okay.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I also, when we were still doing Husky coverage, which is I said people were like, oh, Michael Penix probably won't be that good. Michael Penix is one of the best quarterbacks in all of college. So it's interesting, with, you said 10 games, right? 6-3 right now. You play the Buccaneers in an ungodly early morning. But Tampa Bay's had their weaknesses, and they've shown that. Outside of having to get a really clutch stop and then get the ball back against the Rams yesterday, they could be dead to rights. The Raiders have had their own struggles. You wondered, they had a 20-7 lead against the Jaguars yesterday, and they blew that. And then they got blown out by the Saints the other week. The Rams, I'm going to hold my judgment on because they've still got a ton of talent. I don't want to mess with that. Aaron Donald is like the boogeyman. So you got 2 games to play against them. The Panthers, I have no idea. Are we going to get Baker Mayfield or are we going to get PJ Walker? They got blown out against the Bengals yesterday. If you played Joe Mixon, I pray for you.
Yes.
Did you play Joe Mixon?
No.
Oh, I was like,
thank goodness.
But the Panthers, I'm not too worried about at home. The 49ers, the first go-round was rough, but that was week 2, and this team wasn't really clicking yet. So I against the 49ers at home, I feel better about. The Chiefs, no.
Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes.
Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. The Jets. Earlier in the season, I would laugh at this.
Okay, but they just beat the Bills.
Yes, that's why I said earlier in the season.
Which the Packers weren't able to do last week, and then the Jets beat the Packers, but then the Jets come and, take care of business.
Gardner's played really well. I don't know about the offensive side of the ball. Breece Hall went down, but their defense looks like they've done a solid job. That one that'll be a good game. That'll be a good game. And then end of the season against the Rams at home. Again, holding my judgment.
The Rams matchups are tough.
I feel like
we're gonna get to 10.
I feel like we can get to 10. And with the way the Rams losing, so I'll thank Tom Brady for that. But with the Rams losing, that knocks them down a peg again in the standings. It really feels like you could win your division. And I know there might be, you guys changed your tune. Yeah, I did. I was wrong at first, but I also want to err on the side of caution because things can change. Injuries can happen. It's a long season still. But, hopefully come out of this Buccaneers game, put a good fight in an early morning in a really cool environment in Germany, and they get the bye week. So rest over the bye week, be able to game plan against who's right after? Was it the Raiders, right?
Oh,
so it looks like you're in a solid position right now. So I'm really happy with how things gone, which puts me into our segue for the trade deadline. I'm happy you didn't do anything in the trade deadline. You could have added to this team, but with the capital that you have this offseason and going forward, you can. Why sacrifice any of that to make this team better when you weren't expected to win? I know Pete said they wanted to contend still, but you can just add this offseason and get better and build off of this rookie class. Save money for Geno for this offseason.
I think I would have been completely shocked if I saw a headline about a Seahawks trade them involved in a trade.
I don't think they needed to do anything.
No.
Interesting to see, because it was supposed to, like, the few days before this all took place that you'll get into in a second, it was like it's going to be a quiet trade deadline. It was like, okay, sure. And then all this happened. So I'll let you get into it with league news.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, there were some stuff that happened in the trade deadline here. TJ Hawkinson was traded to Minnesota. The Lions traded the star tight end in division for 4 draft picks. Chase Claypool made his way to Chicago. The Steelers traded the star wide receiver to the Bears to help Justin Fields. Bradley Chubb was traded to Miami, as if Miami needed more help. The Dolphins bolstered their roster with star pass rusher. Calvin Ridley was traded to Jacksonville. Suspended wide receiver will help Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars eventually. Nyheim Hines was traded to Buffalo. The Colts send the quality backup running back to add to the Bills offense, again, as if they need more. But I mean, which one of these surprised you the most? We knew people were fielding Chase Claypool for a while. I mean,
maybe Hawkinson or Chubb. I mean, you acquire Russell Wilson for Denver and you think, okay, maybe, just with that division, I think this move kind of says, hey, we need to do more in the future. For the future, pardon me. Hawkinson, trading him in division is kind of weird.
That is weird.
It's because of what the Vikings are now like 7-1.
7-1, sitting at the top of their division.
Yeah, Miami getting better, great, and then they signed him to a big extension, and Buffalo also adding a quality back when, their backfield has always kind of been questionable for a while. So interesting to see how Hines helps, because he's been a solid guy for a while. Usually when Taylor would get injured, it's like, all right, Nyheim Hines is going to slot in well. So I don't know, really interesting to see. And even Taylor for Indianapolis hasn't been doing too hot. So,
yeah. Not much. Nothing super surprising to me. That, as I said, if the Seahawks would have been involved in any sort of headline for this, I would have been completely surprised. We'll move on to some more league news here. The teams wanted the trade deadline pushed back, so multiple teams reached out to the NFL this past week to ask about moving the trade deadline back to week 10 or 12. Not sure how much more that would help. I mean, what do you think? Why would a decision need to be pushed back?
I mean, week 10 or 12 feels late.
It does.
It's like, hey man, you've got a good amount of the season already to make that decision. I'm sure it's like, hey, with one more week added, we want to have another week to think about it. And
I don't think it's necessary.
It's okay, if you were going to get a deal done, figure it out, get it done.
Right.
Don't,
Okay. Moving on. The Commanders are possibly up for sale. They could sell for up to $7 billion. The Washington's NFL franchise receiving considerable interest and may be sold by the March league meeting. Not sure if you tuned in or if you saw the score to their game this last weekend, but they did lose. I think they were leading for a portion of the game, and then they did lose.
Yeah, Minnesota had to come back. That's right.
Yeah, and they did hear chants of sell the team. So fans weren't too happy. I don't know.
Dan Snyder is a bag of bad words that we don't say on the show. So ideally, I'd like that to happen as soon as possible, and then be able to look at that Washington franchise without disgust. So
that would be nice. Moving on back to our Seahawks here. They have a regular season standing of 6-3, first in the NFC West. And as we've mentioned several times here, they have a game on Saturday or Sunday at 6:30 a.m. because they will be playing in Munich.
Yeah, that'll be when we get the nice little Munich, Germany logo on there. That's cool. But 6:30 in the morning.
You working up for that?
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I might just stay up at that point or go to bed at like 7 o'clock at night. Like, all right, nighttime. I mean, it gets dark at 5. Just go to bed when it gets dark.
Daylight savings time.
So there you go. Yeah. Early morning. So November 13th versus the Bucks, 6:30 a.m. I don't know when I'm going to put the game day post because usually we put those at 8 o'clock in the morning.
5 a.m.
5 a.m. and then we'll make one for the night before. So that'll wrap up our Seahawks stuff. Wow, look, we can talk about them for a while.